breastfeeding journey and me. So I'm a mum of 4 boys. Alfie's 13, Ellison's 7 and the twins are 18 months. I breastfed all 4 of my boys. However, from 2 weeks old I introduced formula to all 4 of my boys, purely because I wanted them to be in a routine of an evening and I wanted to know how much they were taking for them to be settled and for everybody to get a good night's sleep. So for me it worked. As they say, breast is best, but for me breast and formula worked. I liked it. People had an opinion on it, my midwife had an opinion on it and the health visitors had an opinion on it. However, it worked for me. There's nothing wrong with my boys, and touch wood, from 6 weeks old all 4 of my boys have slept. I've dream fed them at 10 o'clock and they've all woke up between 6 and half 6 with no feeds in between from 6 weeks old. Again, some agree, some don't agree, but it worked for me and it worked 4 times for me. And especially with the twins, it's a whole new ball game breastfeeding with twins. And personally, I found a lot of pressure to feed the twins. Even though I was set to formula feed them, I had everything ready to formula feed them, but obviously when they was born, my milk was there, I had a good milk supply, and thankfully I was able to breastfeed, and I always did from day one. I had a good latch, I had a great support, and I thoroughly enjoyed breastfeeding. But for me, I liked my bath routine and bottle routine, just so I knew where we was all at, how much they had, and just, yeah, for me, I just enjoyed the routine of the bottles of an evening. And as I said, with all 4 boys it worked, but I loved it both, so I was grateful to have best of both. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Kerry, I'm a midwife and I'm going to talk to you about my breastfeeding journey. So I always wanted to breastfeed. I always was so determined to breastfeed, and because I'm a midwife I felt like my journey was sort of a bit more pressurised from a certain point of view, because obviously being a healthcare professional, being a midwife, I would quite easily put other babies on mum's breast and help them breastfeed. So I thought that, you know, it should really come naturally to me. My little girl latched on really well after she was born at home in the pool, had a really good first feed, and then she struggled a little bit with her latch, so that meant that I kind of made a rod for my own back, because when she was latched on, even though I kind of knew that she wasn't latched on perfectly, I kind of let her carry on feeding, so it got us into sort of bad habits really. The first 7 weeks I would say were really tough, but I persevered. And then one of my friends mentioned something called the flipple, which is a technique, so where you basically use your fingers and you flip your nipple into baby's mouth for a good latch. And then after that, I would say it was brilliant. So when people say breastfeeding's easy, I don't think it's easy per se, but I think that for us after that 7 weeks, then it became so much easier. I actually donated breast milk as well, so that was quite interesting as part of my journey to the local milk banks. That was all done through the hospitals where I had screening, etc., and then it was donated so that it helped sort of premature babies, etc. I think a couple of tips from me, so I definitely go and find some support groups nearby because they were a massive help, and just relax into it as well. If baby's really struggling to latch on, just take a couple of minutes, go and have a cup of tea, let them have skin to skin with your partner, or come back, have skin to skin, and then try them on the breast again. But if anybody wants any feeding tips, etc., then I'm always here to help. Good luck, bye.
Hi everyone, my name's Holly, and I've got a 2-year-old daughter and also a baby boy called Archie, and he is 4 weeks tomorrow actually. Just feeding him so that he's quiet and not moaning. I just wanted to talk about breastfeeding and how I'm getting on so far. So with Lily, I breastfed her until she was pretty much 1, not exclusively at that point. Over 6 months I think I gave her formula before bed. With Archie, he's doing really well, so his latch is good, and we're exclusively breastfeeding. Haven't tried expressing just yet, but probably will soon. We've got on pretty well. I'd say the first week is very hard. A lot of people start off their first night at home exhausted from the labour, and it's a lot of like pain, so the nipples are really painful, they're bleeding. My letdown was really fast, so the midwife told me to express a little bit off at the start, and there's blood in the milk, so it's really hard. And it's every 2 hours through the night, so it's very exhausting, and with a toddler. So I didn't have any expectations. I was kind of like, I'll see if I can do it, and if I can't, I can't. Like, can't have him stuck to me all the time with a toddler. It's worked out all right because obviously we're in lockdown, so can't go out, can't really do much. And the first couple of weeks are hard because you're getting to grips with it, and the baby isn't that good at latching on to start with. So it's probably been a good idea because I haven't been out trying to get him to latch on in a public place in front of people. I went for a walk the other day and some girl messaged me saying that she was so scared to feed out in public that she just hasn't even been for walks in case the baby needs feeding. But I've got a cover up. It's like a muslin material, so even when it's hot, it keeps them cool. And it kind of doesn't bother me this time round. I mean, if my baby's crying, then he needs to be fed. So but I got all the formula, and I was planning to breastfeed, so I was kind of happy either way. It doesn't matter. Formula fed babies apparently sleep better, so that is a bonus. But apart from that, the milk's still working out sort of how much he wants. So I'd say there's still quite a lot of milk there, and so he chokes, takes in a lot of wind, and it's quite gassy, so it's quite hard to settle. I'm actually getting him checked for posterior tongue tie because he shouldn't be getting that much wind. I'm not sure why he is choking. Maybe the milk just comes out too fast. But there's just no support whatsoever. So I'm trying to speak to midwives, I'm trying to reach out to health visitors and stuff, and there's just no support. Like, even, I mean, luckily I'm not a first time mum because I think I would have given up by now. It's so hard, but luckily I've done it before. I do just keep irritating this midwife that I know on Facebook and just keep asking her questions. She sends me voice notes, but it's very hard. There's no support. I can't get him weighed. I used to get Lily weighed every week to make sure she was gaining weight. He looks like he's growing, so obviously I'm not too concerned, but the support at the moment is pretty horrendous. So yeah, I mean, no one comes out to see you, but we're doing really well in our journey, and I'm going to buy the wireless expressing machine by LV because I just think, because I have got a toddler, I can't be hooked up to the plug, so I'm going to get that, and that should make life easier as well. And then also Andy can do some feeds, and also I'd quite like Lily to feed him as well. I think it'd be quite cute.
Hi everyone, so my name's Chantel Perkins and I am a mummy of 2. I have Dulcie that is 21 months old, and I have Olivia who is 8 months old. So I'll just give you a quick overview of my feeding journey with the girls. So when Dulcie was born, I was exclusively breastfeeding. I'd been one of these mums that kind of just said, I'll give it a go. If it doesn't work, then, you know, bottle is absolutely fine. But I will say, when I started the breastfeeding journey and got into it, I definitely felt like I really wanted to breastfeed. Anyway, so used the help that was given at hospital, used the help that was given via the midwife and then the health visitor. But basically my journey with Dulcie ended quite quickly. I probably only got to about 8 or 9 weeks. It became a quite stressful time for me. She was losing weight. My nipples were really sore, and yeah, it was just a bit of a roller coaster. So in a nutshell, we went to combination feeding, and then eventually she was straight on the bottle. And yeah, I did feel bad that I could no longer breastfeed, but essentially I had to do the right thing for her. And with that in mind, I was like really adamant, second baby, definitely going to give it a go. And Olivia actually took really well to the breast, and I was enjoying feeding her, although it was really difficult because Dulcie at this point still wasn't independently feeding herself, so I was having to feed her whilst breastfeeding Olivia, so that became quite troublesome for me, but also it felt like deja vu. So what I thought was going really well, like I said, Olivia fed really well off the breast. Midwife had even commented saying your boobs are perfect for breastfeeding, and the first weigh-in that we had with the health visitor, she had dropped in weight. Now, although it was in the 10%, that was fine. Then we had another weigh-in and she had still lost weight. For me, it just felt like history repeating itself. So straight away, you know, I panicked, and I was like, right, let's get the bottles then. I cannot go through this again. For me, it was more, you know, mentally the side of it for me, rather than doing the right thing for her, because basically the health visitor said to me, no, you know, this is fine, keep pursuing, it's going to be okay. But yeah, for me it was all just a bit too overwhelming and stressful. So we went on to bottle, and then basically went on to bottle pretty quickly. In terms of breastfeeding, went out the window, which made me really sad, because I really wanted to give it a go the second time round. But what I will say is, my first experience of breastfeeding, I felt under pressure, and I felt like a bit of a failure. But also the information I got between midwife to midwife and health visitor to health visitor was so different. And so actually going into it second time round, I really had the confidence to make the right decision for both me and my baby. And actually my health visitor was very supportive of my decision, which was really refreshing for me to have, because before I didn't really get the reassurance. It was more, you know, your latch isn't right, this and that. So I felt more supported the second time around, plus I had the confidence. If I'm lucky to have a third, I will definitely give it a go. But look, the point being is, there's no right or wrong. As long as your baby is feeding and they are gaining weight and they are content and happy and you're happy, that is ultimately win-win all round. So that was my journey. Thank you. Oh, and if you have any questions, feel free to message me.
Hi, I'm Stina, and I thought I would come on and tell you about how I fed my little boy Ralph. At the beginning it was really hard. I had a bit of a tough birth, so my milk didn't come in until day 6, I think it was. And by day 3, when my midwife came, she told me I had to put him on formula because he'd lost a 13% weight loss instead of the 10 and under. So at that point I was combi feeding, and my boobs were sore, my nipples were bleeding, and it was horrific. I had no milk, my little boy was starving, and I breastfed and pumped for 2 weeks alongside formula, and then in the end, after 2 weeks, I gave up. And he was the happiest little boy ever once I'd given up, and it made such a difference to my mood and his mood. And yeah, other than that, it went really well with the bottles, and yeah, it was a really good experience once I'd given up breastfeeding. For me, I felt guilty and stuff, but once I'd got over that initial guilt, we were both really happy, and now he's 2.5 and thriving. Hope that helps.
Everyone decided they wanted to be in the video today, so we're talking about feeding. I actually fed both of my sons the same. We started out in the first few weeks mixed feeding or combination feeding, so that was a mixture of breast milk and formula milk. Spencer here, my eldest, is 2.5. He was born at 36 weeks, weighing £5.13, and he actually had quite bad jaundice. So the nurse advised me, as I was like solely breastfeeding, to top up with formula to help flush through the jaundice. We were in hospital 5 days. Then when we came home, I decided to continue that, so that's what I did. Then after 2 weeks, transitioned on to full formula. He did great, really thrived, gained weight perfectly. I mean, it just really worked for us. And Jacob here is almost 11 months old, and we did the same sort of thing, kind of unintentionally really. I did talk to my husband and say that I would like to give breastfeeding another go. He was born full term, everything was fine, no jaundice or anything, but he did have quite bad tongue tie, which meant that we could not get the latch properly. He also had silent reflux, which meant that he was very uncomfortable and very sick after feeds. So I was constantly it was more little feeds than longer feeds. He shredded my nipples basically. I had breast pads filled with blood. It was so uncomfortable. I sobbed the whole way through breastfeeding. So I decided to express and top him up with formula as well. So I did that for a month. Hello darling. And then decided to move on to full formula. Mixed feeding for me has worked wonders. I see it as the best of both worlds. So it means that they get breast milk and formula milk. I had lots more options and it just worked really well for us. So definitely check out combination feeding if you're sort of thinking about that. Not everyone's feeding stories are the same. Don't feel guilty at the fact that you're not solely breastfeeding or you're not doing this, that or the other. You just do what works for you and your baby, because mixed feeding worked really, really well for us, and I'm so glad that that's the route that I took.
Hi, I'm Natasha, I'm 25 and I have a 2-year-old little girl called Neve, and I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about our breastfeeding journey. When I became pregnant, I didn't really think about if I wanted to breastfeed or if I wanted to bottle feed. I wanted to give it a try, but I didn't want to put too much pressure on myself because I knew a little bit about how hard it could be. So I bought all the bottles, sterilizer, everything I needed to bottle feed if that's what the route we were going to go down. Once Neve was born, we were breastfeeding in the hospital. We had to hand express a little bit just to make sure that she was getting enough and her blood sugars were high. Once we came home, it got a little bit tricky and the early stages of breastfeeding were super tough, but I'm very thankful that I had a really supportive midwife to spur me on and get me through those first few weeks. Fast forward, Neve was about 4 months old and I started to experience those first early pains again. So I took her to a local breastfeeding cafe where they actually diagnosed her with tongue tie. Now this was a shock because 4 months she was putting on loads of weight, everything was great until I started getting this sudden pain. So I got her tongue tie reversed and it massively improved our journey so much. I'm so thankful. At first it was hard because we had to go back to basics and learn how to latch again, but about a month or two we got through it. So the first 6 months of her life she solely had breast milk, which I'm so proud of. So yeah, alongside her weaning and her solids, we've had to overcome fears of, feeding outside and people's judgments, but I can proudly say that Neve is 2 years and we are still on our journey, and that makes me so happy and so proud. I don't know when it will end. I haven't thought about that far. I just know that it makes us both happy and it has definitely aided to our such strong bond. So yeah, that's a little bit about our journey, and thank you for listening.
Hi, I'm new mum to a 15-week-old Niall, and I just wanted to share my feeding journey with you. Basically, throughout pregnancy, I never ever expected to breastfeed. I put no pressure on myself to breastfeed. I wasn't too bothered over how my baby was going to be fed, just as long as they were fed. And I think that massively helped throughout my mindset. And when I went to appointments and when they asked me, I just kind of kept saying, I'll see what happens, which was weird for me because I'm a plan freak and normally I have to know what's going on. But I'd never been a mum before, and I didn't want to get myself stressed out. You don't know what's going to happen during your labour or whatever else. So I think having that open mindset definitely helped me. From when my little boy was born, I've latched on. I had a few problems at the start whereby he, to me, he was feeding but he wasn't putting on weight, and health visitors or midwives or whatever kept trying to watch me feed and stuff like that, which added a bit of pressure, but me in my head I knew I was doing right. And I just told them that they had to bear with me, and I wanted to do things my way. I never once felt pressured to go on the bottle, but it was in the back of my mind thinking, if this doesn't work, it's fine, like I'll just put him on the bottle. I had everything prepared for him going on formula, so that wasn't an issue either. And long story short, I ended up doing 10 successful weeks. He did eventually start putting on weight. We had actually, during that time, got admitted to hospital because he'd lost 13% of body weight, which they saw as an issue, but he weighed 10 pound 2 at birth, so therefore he was always going to be a hungry baby. They naturally lose weight. So again, I just stuck to my own gut feelings. I made them aware that, he is a healthy baby and stuff, and I was feeding as often as possible. Sounds quite harsh in some ways, but I do believe that a baby has to adapt to your life as much as you adapt to them being in your life. So I wasn't just going to be fed on tap. I did put in a routine from the get-go, and it really works for me. He rarely cries. I kind of catch him before the cry happens now. As I say, after 10 weeks, he's now 15. He's on the bottle, he's on a formula called Kendamil. I'd never heard of it before. He suffers with reflux, so he's on medication. But, you know, the feeding journey itself has been a bit of a roller coaster, but I've stuck with it, stuck with my own instincts and what I thought was right. And, you know, now he's thriving, he's putting on loads of weight, he's got like little chunky legs and everything. And in some respects and some people's views, he's had the best of both. Don't get too fixated on how you should feed your baby. It's personal choice. There's no pressure anywhere. You do what you want to do, it's your baby, and you know best, you're its mummy. See you later.